All right, I'm a little early. I know you guys will probably get on in a little bit. Okay, how's everyone doing? Sorry about yesterday. Got to do some stuff for school. Tomorrow we're not going to have our live class. I'll pick it up on Thursday again, and then we'll have our third one of the week on Friday. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see me. How are you, Brian? All right. So basically, what I gave you guys yesterday was a PowerPoint on the skeletal system. Okay. How are you, Evelyn? So basically, what we're going to be doing now today, and for our next unit is going to be body systems, right? So we're going to be going through the skeletal. We're going to be talking about our muscles, our brain, okay, our nervous system, our respiratory system, and all that good stuff. All right. So really quick, if you looked at your notes, some of the things that I just want to talk about on the skeletal system is actually what does it do. So your skeletal system, right, the bones in your body, all right, miss all you guys, Evelyn. Basically, what your skeletal system does, it provides movement, okay? Without your bones, you wouldn't be moving, okay? The other thing is it supports and protects your body parts, okay? So if you're standing up, your bones are holding you up. If not, if you didn't have bones, you would just be a blob on the floor. They also protect your body. So when you're thinking about it, let's say if you ever, hopefully this doesn't happen, but if you're uh, getting attacked or something, usually you curl up into a ball and you're protecting your organs with your back. That's because your skeletal system is able to protect you. Okay. Oh, thank you. You need a haircut though. Makes red blood cells and white blood cells. And then also the bones in your body, they store minerals such as calcium and phosphorus for use by the body. Okay. So those are the four main reasons that you need a skeletal system for you're able to basically function the way that we function today. Okay. So one of the main important parts of our skeletal system is our vertebrae. Okay. So our vertebrae is our backbone. This is what protects the spine. So the spinal cord runs up and down your back, okay? And it goes up into your brain through your neck. So the reason behind it is you want to protect that because when people become paralyzed and stuff, that's when the spinal cord gets disrupted, all right? How are you, Josue? So the skeletal system and your vertebrae protects that important stuff inside your spine so you're not getting hurt, all right? So now we're going to talk about our joints. So there's two different types of joints. And our joints are where two bones come together. So you have immovable and movable joints. All right. Immovable joints, they're not moving. Movable joints are the joints in your body, okay, that are able to move. So we're going to talk about the four different types of movable joints. Movable joints, okay? So there are four different types. Hopefully you guys can see it. Again, these are in your notes. So if you can't really see perfectly, because I try to fit a lot on this board, go back to your notes, all right? So we have four different types. We got a hinge joint, ball and socket, we have a pivot, and then we have gliding, okay? So we're going to talk about those four different joints and what they do inside of our body. So for the first one, our hinge joint, okay? This is basically a movement in only one direction. Okay. When you think of a hinge, where one of the parts that you can see in your actual house where there's a hinge is at your door. All right. So most doors, they only move in or out. So a hinge joint can only move one way. So an example of that is your knee and your elbow. All right. Because think about it. If you have your elbow, right, it can only go one way. If my elbow went the other way, it's going to hurt a lot because this is a hinge joint. Okay. Same thing with your knee. Can't really show you because I'm going to be out of frame, but your knee can only go backwards. All right. If it goes forward, it's going to hurt a lot. And that's because the joint inside your knee and your elbow is called a hinge joint and it can only move one way. All right. So that's a hinge joint. Now, a ball and socket joint, okay, this is the next one. This is where the round end of a bone fits basically inside of another bone. So this is where you find in your shoulder and in your hip, okay? Let's see, why can't it be in reverse where the arm goes downwards? That's just not the way that we're meant. All right, we weren't made that way. So basically, the hinge joint, like if you try to go back all the way, it's gonna get stuck. You can't go the other way. All right. Some animals they get more movement in their elbows and stuff, but for us, our elbows and our knees, they're just hinge joints. Now, the next one where you have more free range is the ball and socket. Okay, this is where it's in the shoulders and the hips. So this allows you to move your arm basically in every which way. Okay, if you're flexible enough. All right. So your shoulder is a ball and socket because this arm, all right, the bone in your arm goes into your shoulder. Okay. It's smoothed out and you get free motion. Okay. You can move your arm basically any which way. All right. Might be a little bit tougher to go back, but you can still move your arm back pretty far. All right. So that's a ball and socket. Now, the third one is the pivot joint. Okay. So this is when bones are sitting on top of another bone and it permits free movement. Okay. So for an example of this is your neck, your wrists, and your ankles. All right. So your neck, right? You got bones all in your neck and they rest on top. This helps you. You're able to move it back and forth. Okay. And up and down because your bones are sitting on top of each other. Same thing with your wrists. You're able to move them like this. It's like a pivot. Okay. Where you're able to move back and forth. And the same thing with your ankles. Okay. You could do the same thing with your foot. And the pivot allows you to move your head. If you didn't have a pivot joint inside of your neck, you'd be stuck just looking forward. Okay. You'd have to move your whole body with your legs. What was that, Jose? Why not downward? What with the pivot joint downward? You can still move up and down one. What do you mean by that? For the pivot joint? The pivot joint allows free movement, so you're able to move everything. Okay? Same thing with your neck and your ankles. Where this movement, okay, for the pivot, you can't do that with your elbow. Your elbow can only go back and forth. Like make your head go down. Well, you can. You can go like this, but it's a little different than the hinge. I think that's what you meant. You're trying to say. So the hinge joint, if my neck only had a hinge joint, I would only be able to do this up and down, but I can also move it side to side. And that's the difference between a pivot and a hinge joint. The hinge joint can only go one way. All right. Oh, go back to the opposite side? Or you mean spin all the way around? If you mean like spin all the way around, remember, since it's turning, right? You can only pivot it a certain amount of ways. So you can go from side to side. Same thing with your wrist, right? Can you flip your hand all the way back? No, you can get free motion, but you can't twist it all the way, all right? Or else the pivot, basically your joints inside will break, okay? You don't want that. Same thing with your ankle, with your foot, right? You can move your foot, but you can't flip it the other way. So that's the hinge joint. Now, the next one is the gliding joint. So this is when bones are allowed to go over another, okay? So this is where your knuckles. So if you crack your knuckles, that's you grinding or gliding your joints over each other, okay? So right now you could do that. You could do that with your toes. You can even do that with your ankles, okay? That's how you can crack your ankles because you're gliding your joints. So those are the four, okay? So gliding, it's basically in the word, the joints are gliding across from each other. Pivot, you can move freely. The ball and socket, that's only in your hips and your shoulders, okay? That gives you free motion, all right? If any of you playing sports, if you're kicking a soccer ball, right, you can kick it in different directions. with your legs because you're able to move your legs a little bit more freely because of that ball and socket. And then the last one, the hinge, when you're kicking the soccer ball, the only way, your leg can only go back one way and then kick forward, okay, from your knee down. If you end up going the opposite way, that's how you get hurt. Same thing with your elbow. If you go back a little bit too far, you're going to end up hurting your elbow. So those are the 4 types of joints. Now, some of the other things, definitions that I want to talk about is what connects those bones and those muscles. So the ligaments, that's bone to bone. That's what they connect, okay? So your ligaments in your shoulders connect your arm into your shoulder, okay? And it's connected by ligaments. So if you end up, tearing a ligament, it ends up being, bad for you in the long run, and then you might have to get surgery. So for me, my own personal experience is when I was in college, I swam a lot, and I ended up tearing one of the ligaments in my shoulder, so then my arm kept falling out. So I had to get it surgically repaired, and they had to fix it all up because my ligament was damaged, and it was no longer connecting the bone to the bone, okay? So besides bone to bone, the tendon is when the muscles are attached to the bone, okay? So that's what attaches your muscles to your bones. So sometimes when you watch like sports and you hear someone pull their tendon or rupture their tendon or tore their tendon, that means the muscle is hanging off of the bone, okay? And then you have to end up getting that repaired too. So ligaments, bone to bone, tendons connect muscles to bones. Now, the bones themselves, you might have heard this before, is bone marrow. So inside of the bone, you have bone marrow, which is basically soft connective tissue that's inside, okay? And the bone marrow is what produces blood cells for your body. It produces most of them, okay? And it also stores fat that can serve as an energy reserve. So remember how we talked about we have to eat stuff for energy? Not only, maybe you might put on a couple of pounds somewhere for reserved, but some of your reserves are also found inside of your bones, okay? And then the last thing is cartilage, okay? So since we're talking about the skeletal system, sometimes cartilage gets confused as being a bone. Now, cartilage is a very strong, flexible tissue, all right? It's usually, actually, I'm going to ask you guys, where do you guys think cartilage is in your body? Do you guys know? I want to say, let's see who can comment. Where do you guys think cartilage is? All right, perfect, Brian. So basically cartilage, it's strong, flexible tissue, right? So you have cartilage in your nose, all right? You have a bone very high up in your nose, but overall, your nose, you can move it back and forth. That's cartilage. Now, the other part that you have cartilage is your ears, okay? So there's no, while I'm doing this, right? I'm not breaking any bone in my ear. I can move it back and forth, okay? So this is all cartilage. It's strong. It's going to keep its shape, okay? But you're able to move it, all right? I can move it to the side, and then it goes back into place. That's strong, flexible tissue, all right? So basically, this is all I wanted to go over today. I'm going to post a video that kind of goes over to the skeletal system, and then we're going to go from there. Does anyone have any questions on what we just went over? Again, this is all on the PowerPoint that I put up yesterday. There are pictures that go along with this to better explain it. I wasn't going to draw a picture, okay? I wasn't the best in art class. But does anyone have any questions with what we just went through? As I go to the other side and get a seat, so I'm no longer on the floor. Any questions? No? All right, pretty self-explanatory. So I mentioned it before on the beginning of the video, but a couple people came in later. Tomorrow I have to go into the school to basically clean up some stuff. So I will not be online tomorrow. I will do this on Thursday instead, and then we'll have our regular time on Friday. Okay. How's everyone doing with the Google Classroom and stuff? Everyone's finding that okay? I know sometimes the brain pop, sometimes they'll ask you for a update on the software. Again, I understand everyone's doing this at home. So if you do have a problem with it, just let me know and I'll exempt you from the program, okay? Or for that assignment. All right. I understand that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to be doing some of this stuff at home, especially for science when I try to keep it hands on. All right, guys, I'll see you later. See you guys later. All right. Stay safe.